The Vancouver Canucks rebuild conversation has just gotten spicier, courtesy of an article posted by Patrick Johnston earlier this afternoon. This will be linked in the description for your reading pleasure, but it's the #1 trending article on the province right now. Canucks president of hockey ops Jim Rutherford says, "We are open to conversations on all players." The Canucks have now moved on from considering offers on only UFA players. Everybody is on the table when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks and their trades. Formerly, we were only talking about the UFAs, so Evander Kane, Teddy Bluger, Sherwood, David Kampf, and then you could also talk about Derek Forbort, but he has been out the entire season, it feels like. There are some RFAs you can debate whether or not they are worth talking about. Lucas Reichel, we know he was on the trade block for a while, probably still is. Mancini, Olivier Joseph are RFAs. But now, seems like Vancouver's open to business with everybody on this list. Let's dive into the latest from Patrick Johnston to go over the comments from Jim Rutherford, starting out with what he said here. "It's our duty to take calls on everyone," Rutherford flatly told PJ Wednesday morning after a report from TSN's Darren Dreger that the Canucks would be willing to trade even Elias Pettersson came through. That's a shift from a couple of months ago, the veteran hockey boss acknowledged. In November, Rutherford first said his team needed to get younger, and to begin that process, the Canucks were ready to trade their UFAs. They have moved beyond such a small enclosure. When we started the process, the intent at the start was to not get into any core player. It may very end up staying that way, he said, but it certainly would not make sense for Patrick to not listen to anybody. Now, I found this very interesting, how Rutherford straight up said it was a Patrick Allvin thing to go out there and listen to folks on trades. And it seems like PJ agrees. He wrote here that Patrick Allvin being mentioned came across as very intentional. In the Quinn Hughes trade, it was Jim Rutherford who directed everything and who took the calls. That prioritization raised some eyebrows. While the Canucks have been used to an intentionally deliberate process to reach decisions, it has always been Allvin who has stood up to speak on trades, signings, and the like. It's always that way with every organization. Everyone's involved, Rutherford said. Patrick's the GM. That's part of his duty, to make the changes. We may end up saying no to offers, certainly, but we're not going to say no to having conversations about any player. This is about improving this team without taking shortcuts, Rutherford said. Now, I love that. No taking shortcuts, right? Right, Francesco Aquilini? No Oliver Ekman-Larsson trades, no Tanner Pearson extensions, just pure building. No transitory moves, no band-aid solutions, no shortcuts, just focus on building the team and getting younger. That's what PJ writes here. When he says shortcuts, he means holding discipline, not taking side tours on trades or signings that don't have the long term in mind. That's trying to do it too quickly, Rutherford said. We've got to have the patience of living through where we are presently, being cautious in what was being moved and what is the return. Continue to stick to either getting young players, 25 or younger, or getting draft picks. There are deals out there that could make our team better today, but does it work for us over a 3-year period? I would like to think, based on the number of young players that we have, that we've been able to pick up over the last few years with high ceiling, that this rebuild can take 2 or 3 years, not 6 to 10. Along the way, there will be opportunities to also add veteran players who would play a developmental role for the team's younger players. He cited Chicago's signing of Nick Foligno in 2023 as an example of such a move. The veteran forward is now Chicago's captain. I think signing veteran players is actually necessary, he said. You can't just take a bunch of 22-year-olds and throw them to the wolves. It's a tough league. And that I will absolutely agree with as well. You can't just keep on going only young, because then you'll end up like Buffalo. The Vancouver Canucks have it in them to potentially sign guys to cheap, short-term contracts like Ian Cole, for example. Ian Cole is a good veteran that keeps people in the room accountable and who has that leadership presence. but he doesn't cost 7 years. He doesn't cost 5 years. He's not going to be a big money deal like a Besser or a Demko or a Garland or whatever. These are the guys that probably should be, moved in order to make space for younger players and to get more draft picks. But you can't just have only young guys, because that's a really bad formula for a group of dudes who are trying to find their way in this league. You need some veteran support, and the fact is you can get veteran support in free agency for cheap. You don't have to keep on making big acquisitions. You don't have to keep on staying loyal to very specific guys. Like, okay, yeah, you can keep some of these veterans, but a lot of these guys have got to go. Kane's got to go. One of Garland, Besser, DeBrusk at least has to go. Elias Pettersson even. Maybe he's got to go. Going out there and reading this, PJ says, in other words, they will take calls on the likes of Myers, Hronek, or Marcus Pettersson, but there is no fire sale. Some of those guys will stay. If we can just keep adding to our young assets, hopefully we can do this in 2 to 3 years. It's not an easy process. We have to be very methodical. You can't lose patience because you're losing some games. No one enjoys losing, PJ writes. Yeah, no one does, Rutherford said. But I don't think it's totally a surprise. We have, in most games, 5 to 6 first-year players in the lineup, 3 of which are playing defense, which is very hard in this league. But it's the right thing to do in terms of development. They're going to be better for it. Yeah, okay, like, they're looking at the holistic body of defense rather than focusing on the individual, which is why guys like Zeev Buium are getting scratched every night. Okay, we gotta calm it down. Yeah, no. Zeev Buium, Tom Willander, these guys are rotating. I think, in general, it is tough to run a D-core with 4 rookie defensemen. But hey, if the Vancouver Canucks went with everybody's ideal version of the lineup, that's probably what you got, right? You would have Zeev Buium, you'd have Elias Pettersson, you'd have Mancini, and you'd have Willander. Maybe that's a little too much, so I can understand from that perspective. It's like, okay, we can only really do 2 or 3 young guys in the lineup on D at a time, which is why Pettersson's getting sent down, Buium's getting rotated in, Willander's coming out, Mancini's getting his cup of coffee because he's coming back. Makes sense, but I will say it does hurt a little bit to see Zeev Buium getting healthy scratched once in a while. Losing games is one thing. Some of the mistakes that are being made that are blowing games wide open, those need to be fixed sooner rather than later. That's what we're watching. Who adapts? Obviously, some of these guys have been put in tough spots. We have 2 centers who would be in our top 9 forwards out of the lineup. And let's be clear here, PJ writes, Rutherford knows they're going to lose a bunch. It's been tough to watch his team as of late, doubly so because he's been stuck at home battling a virus the last 2 weeks. But there's an overall purpose here. Losing does get them into a better draft position, he admitted. That's correct. If we don't stick to it, the rebuild process will take longer, and get the people here what they deserve, a championship-caliber team. Our preference is to pick in the draft as high as we can. Did the Vancouver Canucks straight up just admit that the rebuild is going down a traditional rebuild path? Maybe not necessarily because they're going to be trading everybody, but because they're going to start taking calls on everybody, and they will try to position themselves to get a higher draft pick. Thank the heavens for Patrick Allvin, man. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this Canucks rebuild update? How it's taken a big turn for the appropriate. How Vancouver has gotten forced into this position after trying their darndest to put together a competitive team, to try to keep Quinn Hughes here, to now the fact that Elias Pettersson's name is out there and Patrick Allvin is very willing to take calls on him. Let me know how you feel about all these rebuild discussions in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.